the Madman! Welcome to the top 10 most impactful cards of Murder at Castle Nathria. Number 10. It's Sire Denathrius, aka Daddy D. Sire Denathrius is actually here for only a very specific reason. He is going to perhaps create an offshoot of Druid. Druid can search up Sire Denathrius with Cold Tooth Mine. Druid can ramp up to Sire Denathrius mana pretty quickly. And Druid can play Brand Sire Denathrius without having to go through that Sinstrider thing. Also, Druid has 5 cards in their arsenal, which create a lot of tokens. For that reason, you can very rapidly search up Denathrius, ramp up to 13 mana, have a bunch of things die, play Brand, play Denathrius, and kill your opponent in possibly a unit of time that you wouldn't expect to be that fast. Outside of Druid, it is possible that Sire Denathrius actually makes it as the top end of some value or control decks. Number 9. Lady Darkvein. The interesting thing about Lady Darkvein is even if you don't actually cast any shadow spells, she's still a 5-mana 3/6 that summons 2/2/1s, which is actually pretty decent. So that's quite exceptional, where the card is like, okay, even if you don't actually use the main point of the card, but once you actually cast the card, like, you cast 2 more of that card. So it's like draw and cast 2 more of the last shadow spell, which is insane. You're gonna see her in a lot of decks, all of the decks, just because she's so efficient. Curse Lock really wants a critical number of curses. This gives 2 more, so that's pretty insane. She can use Dark Alley Pact for control decks or imp decks. The Dark Alley Pact, by the way, summons a big imp, and then you have Lady Darkvein summoning 2 more big imps for maximum card draw. You can copy Impending Catastrophe and then draw a truly incredible amount of cards. Lady Darkvein's gonna be around for the next 1.5 years, so there's gonna be another shadow spell at one point or another that you're gonna want to copy. Number 8. Theotar the Mad Duke. Neutral legendary by the virtue of being neutral. A lot of different decks can use it, and due to where we are, I actually think a lot of decks will want to use it. Ideally, you want to put it in a deck that can generate bad cards. Then you can give a card that isn't worth that much to your opponent, and then you can take their important card. Theotar's main purpose, though, is to take the good card from the opponent, and there are a lot of good cards right now. Bran Bronzebeard, Wildheart Guff, Lady Prester, Queen Ishara, Kazaku-san, Magister Dawngrasp, Dreadlich Tamsin, Beaststalker Tavish, Brabatoa, Raid Boss Onyxia, Mordesh Fireeye, Shadowcrafter Scabs, Mr. Smite, Zyrella the Devout, Lightforged Cariel, Kurtrus Demon Render, Jace Darkweaver, Reno Jackson, Lady Anacondra, Nelly the Great Thresher, Zyrella the Sanctified after the opponent completes the quest from Priest, and many, many more. I just happened to scroll down the list of legendaries, but there's a bunch of good cards. The point is this: there's a lot of good high-end cards in almost every deck, even though it's bad stats for the cost. If the meta is a little bit more control-based or combo-based, Theotar is probably the tech card that I see as most likely to actually see play. A lot of mid-range decks, a lot of decks that actually generate cards, will want to put Theotar in their deck so they can give the not-so-great card and take potentially an extremely important card from the opponent. Number 7. Pelagos. This card is really going to elevate Naga buff Priest. I think you will add Pelagos, and you will add the other cards that are good for buff Priest, Cathedral of Atonement and Partner in Crime. and it is going to make the buff priest deck very, very fearsome indeed. Pelagos plus Nagawig equals 4 mana 8/8. Pretty insane, and you only had to use one card for it because Nagawig should give you back the Nagawig. Pelagos is such a big threat for your future cards as well, especially if you got your Nagawig back after you buffed Pelagos. You can even just play Pelagos on turn 3, and your opponent might have to like burn everything in order to deal with your 3 mana 6 health creature. It's very tough to kill your 6 mana minion on turn 3, by the way. Number 6, Wild Spirits. I do think that the Wild Seed package from Hunter is very strong. I think that you should use all of the cards with Wild Seed, and furthermore, Wild Spirits is here as the card that ties all of the Wild Seed cards together and makes them just a little bit better, because if you do end up getting that deer, the Wild Spirits makes the deer come even faster. Wild Spirits is 3 mana to summon 2 cards, so it's almost like draw and play 2 cards, and the cards that they're playing are generally worth a total of more than 3 mana, and you basically got to draw 2 on top. I think Wild Spirits by itself is just very strong, but when you consider that it also buffs your other Wild Seed deck cards, it's just super strong. Number 5, Imp King Rathom is really, really strong. He independently makes your Imp deck better. I'm going to separate out Imp King Rathom from Val Library, not group them together, because they're good for a little bit of a different reason. Imp King Rathom is also not entirely grouped with Lady Darkvein, because even though they're probably going to see play in the same deck, Imp King Rathom does encourage Lady Darkvein to build in a very specific way, which is turn 4 Dark Alley Pact, turn 5 Darkvein, turn 6 Rathom? What if you have both of your Dark Alley Pact, all 3 of your Dark Alley Pact imps, yes, those are imps, die, and then Rathom summons them? Okay, it's probably not turn 6 in that case, but the point is, when they all die, and when Rathom gets infused and gets to summon all of them, they're gonna be huge. If your average imp summoned is a 2/2, which I think is a little bit low for the average, but for the sake of making Rathom look bad, we're gonna say that's the case, and that's 8/8. The buff is plus 8/8. Rathom himself is a 6/6. 6 plus 8 plus 8, 22. 6 mana, 22 worth of stats. Imp King Rathom definitely pushes the Zoo Imp deck. Number 4, Vile Library. Vile Library actually pushes the Imp deck more than Imp King Rathom pushes the Imp deck, because while that's Rathom might be 6 mana for 22, Vile Library only costs 2 mana, and if you just have 3 imps on the board, it's +4/+4. So 2 charges of that, it's 8/8. So 2 mana, 8/8, 6 mana, 22. If you go off of ratios, the Vile Library is stronger, the Vile Library can come out faster, the Vile Library puts on more pressure, doesn't require that you had 5 imps die. Yeah, Vile Library is the reason why Zoo Imp is going to be as strong as it is. Just so much power, so much pressure. Number 3, Prince Renathol. Prince Renathol is in a lot of tier 1 decks, and I believe Prince Renathol will continue to be a part of, hopefully, a healthy deck building process. There will be a trade-off between putting decks with stronger cards, and you want to draw your stronger cards more consistently, so you want to make a 30 card deck, but maybe you really value an extra 10 health, and you're willing to dilute your deck a little bit, so you add in an extra 10 cards, including Renathol. There are a number of decks right now using a 40 card deck, and I think especially as new expansions come in, like we're in the middle expansion of a 3-set cycle right now, the 40 card decks get stronger and stronger because you can dilute your deck more, because there will be more options to put stronger cards in and replace weaker cards. So at one point, like the 40 card Renathol deck is actually going to be stronger with 6 expansions, is going to be stronger than the 4 expansion 30 card deck without Prince Renathol. So if Renathol was strong enough in 4 expansions, imagine how strong he'll be with 5 expansions. It'll be more and more correct to run 40 card decks. It is possible, I would even venture to say, that once that 6th expansion comes in, maybe Prince Renathol might have to get nerfed. Just because the downside of diluting your deck will be less when the card quality across your deck is higher. There will of course be very focused decks that can't afford to make a 40 card deck because they're combo deck, because they really want to draw their cards super fast, they're Miracle Rogue or something, they need their 30 card deck. But there's an interesting thought that a lot of combo decks would really like the extra 10 health to work with, so maybe they'll make a 40 card deck anyways. So Prince Renathol, very, very interesting card, one of my personal favorite cards. I am a deck builder at heart. I really like interesting ways to build decks, and Prince Renathol provides that. I just only hope that the card doesn't warp the meta by enough that eventually like 40 card decks are standard and you would be a fool to run a 30 card deck. I think it is possible that that might happen once card quality gets high enough during the 6 expansion time periods. Number 2, Cathedral of Atonement. I don't think it's a surprise that when you put Hand of a Doll times 3 on a card that costs 1 more than Hand of a Doll, then it's a really, really strong card. I'd say everything on this list that was like top 3 and beyond has a reasonable chance of getting nerfed. Actually, in this case, I'm going to say top 4 and above, perhaps. Reasonable chance of getting nerfed. Anyways, Cathedral of Atonement, 3 Hand of a Dolls on 1 card. Priest actually has some minion-based decks, Naga Priest, and furthermore, Cathedral of Atonement plays so well with the new Priest card. Double the buff when you play it on Partner in Crime. Cathedral of Atonement can be played in 2 very different decks. It can be played in Buff Priest. It can be played in Quest Priest, just because Quest Priest will include generally good arena cards and generally cards that draw cards. Cathedral of Atonement is a nice early location, plays a bunch of minions, you can buff them with Cathedral, draw a bunch of cards. It's good. It's really good. So this is a really strong top 10 list so far. But you know what? This is a good segue to talk about a top 10 deal. Would you like $34? I want you to get this money. And thank you to the sponsor of this video, Webull, for providing a great promotion. Use my link below, deposit at least 1 penny, and they're going to give you 6 free stocks up to $12,600 in value, minimum $34. And keeping it real, you're probably going to get a little bit more than $34 unless you're extremely lucky. But hey, this is like the easiest $34 of your life. Now, I am a very big believer in investing. I've made a few videos about it, and I even have a Patreon where I talk about how I'm personally investing. And I would hope that everyone is investing early and often. It is great to look out for your financial success in the future. And to do that, you gotta get started now. They're bribing you with free money. Go do it. It's a really good UI. I personally use it in order to track my portfolio because you can configure it to show whatever you want. You get your 34 free dollars, you put it into a well-diversified low-cost index fund, such as VTI, you wait 1 or 2 decades, again, setting very realistic expectations here, keeping it real, and then poof, it's $100! And hey, let's say you're super rich out there, you don't even care about this $34. Well, when you sign up, you're also going to give me even more money. If you like my content, great way to give you and me a lot of money. So thank you again, Webull, for the great promotion. Use the link below, sign up, get your free money. Value for all. Now let's get to an honorable mention. Serrated Bone Spike is a really, really strong card. If you preparation Serrated Bone Spike, you can actually, not only have dealt 3 damage for 0 mana, but your preparation fed into a minion. And needless to say, when you preparation and you can use the mana for minions, that's really, really strong. In fact, Druid used to do that, and Innervate got nerfed from 2 to 1 mana. Serrated Bone Spike is just really efficient in a set which rewards playing multiple cards in a single turn. Serrated Bone Spike, I imagine it'll be played in a lot of rogue decks for next year and a half to come. It's tough to be such a strong card and only be in the honorable mentions, but to some extent, it is the deck and how good the deck is that'll matter here. And that brings us to number 1? Impending Catastrophe / Widowbloom Seedsman. Number 1 has traditionally been a slot where it's like cards I'm almost certain are going to get nerfed. They're so good that they seem so unfair that I want to play this deck because this card exists. Anyways, I was very torn on which one of these two very different cards, admittedly, I was going to give number 1 to and number 2 to, and I decided, wait, I can't decide. So I decided to poll Twitch, and they actually split the poll 50-50. You know what? Because of that, I was just like, okay, you two get to share the number 1 spot here, even though you're in completely different decks and do fairly different things. Baseline 2 mana draw 1. If you just have 1 imp, and you're gonna have 1 imp, it's so easy. 2 mana draw 2, which is obviously really good. But you know what? A lot of imp cards summon more than 1 imp. If you summon 2 imps, which is done with as little as 1 mana, then it's 2 mana draw 3. If you play the imp that summons 3 imps, it's 2 mana draw 4. If you play the ritual, the 3 mana card that summons 4 imps, it's 2 mana draw 5. This card feeds the imp deck for Zulok, make sure they keep going. This card could prove the revival for Phylactery Warlock. Phylactery Warlock already used Wicked Shipment. Now you can use Wicked Shipment to feed into your card draw. The card draw all gets discounted because of your Mithril Rod. It's just absolutely insane. I really want to play that deck. 2 mana, draw 3, 4, 5, very regularly. I don't know what to say. It's absurd. Now on the other side, sharing the number 1 spot here, is Widowbloom Seedsman. It does what Wild Growth does for 1 more mana, and then also draws a nature spell, and then also puts a 3/2 on the board. Can you imagine adding a 1 mana 3/2 package onto a card that is already played in a deck that is already a tier 1 deck, plus the card that all that was tacked to, Wild Growth, is one of the causes for that deck being good, so you made that deck even more consistent in ramping, and Ramp Druid really wants to ramp. Widowbloom Seedsman is absolutely insane, and is one of those rare cards which is just good, just default good in all Druid, maybe not in Token Druid because you don't need the mana, but in all Druid that is actually like mid-range and above. You want to ramp in pretty much all Druids. You want to draw a nature spell in pretty much all Druids. You'd love a free 3/2, you know, just for free while you're at it. I actually don't know what to say about this. It's absolutely absurd. I could have seen perhaps Seedsman maybe get printed if Guff rotated out or something as the new strong Druid ramp option. But yeah, when all of that was still in and Druid was a tier 1 deck and people, you know, were QQing about Guff, you include Widowbloom Seedsman? Huh? I don't get it. So what's better? Is it the card that's blatantly overpowered in a deck that's already good, or is it the card that's ridiculously overpowered in a new deck? Hard to say. So you both get number 1. You're both gonna get nerfed, right? Well, yeah, it's a really strong top 10 list this time around. Really looking forward to giving all of these cards even more serious attempts when Murder at Castle Nathria releases. Huh?